Hi, I'm Judy Shaw. I'm on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. I'm here today with my colleague Matt Kobach and a very special guest. We have Kevin O'Leary. Kevin, you're probably best known as being a shark on Shark Tank, but I think you are especially known for being a businessman, a successful leader. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
We're going to start off by talking to Kevin about leadership style. Tell me about your leadership style.
Well, I've been doing this my whole life. Been through many ups and downs as an entrepreneur, had some great successes, great failures, but that's just the nature of being an entrepreneur. I'd say this about leadership. What I've learned works for me is I find great people and ask them to do extraordinary things for me. And that's, the essence of a business, particularly when you're starting up, is you've got to find a great team that really complements each other's skill sets, and then ask them to do extraordinary things, make them part of the decision-making process, provide a direction, but then let them do their work.
What do you think is a leader's best asset?
Being able to listen. I mean, you learn so much by just keeping your mouth shut and listening. And it's not easy for people with big egos to keep their mouth shut. But the key is you don't learn anything unless you're listening. So great leaders determine over time what their style is, but you'll always find one constant between them is they listen.
So tell me, you're a CEO of a company, actually chairman of several companies. What was your best day as chairman of a company?
Well, I always feel very good when something we started from scratch, we've built up that has a lot of team members that have equity, has an exit. In other words, gets sold or gets merged into something because everybody does very well. That's the nature of I don't do business for the sake of greed of money. I do it for the freedom it provides when you're successful. And I teach that now in engineering cohorts like at McGill and places like Waterloo, Notre Dame. I was there this week teaching. The real essence is, if you want to be a leader in business, think about the freedom that you're pursuing, not money. Greed is such a baseline. It's not what entrepreneurialism is all about.
Have you ever had a bad day as CEO?
Many bad days, and that is the nature of being a leader. You have to learn how to deal with both of them. The euphoria of a great day and the tragedy of despair, and things don't always work out. Business, and I always say this, in business, poo-poo happens. And you've got to learn how to deal with it.
How do you deal with that? When something horrible happens, what's your...
Well, most people have mentors in their lives. I had a mentor a long time ago that taught me that there's a lot of noise every day when you're running a business, a lot of external pressures and noise. Very often on a bad day, it's that you've let some external noise have some effect on you that really shouldn't have, because if you're doing your job as best as you can and pursuing the ultimate mandate of the business, the goal, the business plan, when you get distracted by something like losing a customer or having a product fail or whatever it is, it's just a bump in the road on the journey to success. That's the way you have to look at it.
Right. Real quick, Sean, remind our viewers, we are live on Facebook. You can submit questions. We'll ask the questions if you submit them, but only if they're good.
So, Kevin, let's continue. How do you continue to develop and grow as a leader?
You have to pursue different interests. I always thought the business is yin and yang. I'm very active in the arts. I play guitar. I'm a professional photographer, or was one, and now I just display my art for charity. But you've got to have different interests. And if all you do is focus on your business, you will find that you'll never be as focused as you could be. The yin and yang of the binary nature of black and white of business, making money, losing money, and the chaos of art are truly a great way to combine your life and have your brain working in different directions.
I've got to know, what style of music do you play?
I play a lot of blues.
Okay.
And I always travel with the guitar. I have one with me now, an acoustic. It's at the hotel. I sit down, I mess around every night.
Huh.
I just keep those chops going,
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's known that about you.
Well, I'm just a guy trying to scratch out a living. I'm bringing out my album next year.
Oh, great.
Are you really?
No, no.
Yeah, okay.
Someone to look forward to.
Display the art, maybe do your own cover art, do your own album.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
How do you get others to accept your ideas?
Well, that is the definition of leadership. You have to be able to communicate to people where you're going. You may have doubts, but you can't show them. Leadership is about providing a direction and letting people find their path to getting there. And that's the difference of styles, working with different people. But if you don't know where you're going, you'll never get there. That's an old adage about being an entrepreneur. You've got to decide, in 12 months, this is my revenue. this is where I'm going to get it, this is how I'm going to do it. And then everybody understands how to fall in line with you. They're part of the team or they're not.
So talking about your team, how do you motivate your team?
I don't have to. They love their work, and I provide motivation in the sense of we're going to go in this direction. But how they get there is truly up to them, and I think that's why they like working within our multiple. We have many companies, so we've got 34 portfolio companies now, and in one way or another, everybody's involved in each one, providing social media support, logistics, financing, whatever it is, we help nurture these entrepreneurs.
Oh, that's great. So there's some diversity there in the job
Yes,
as well, being
yes.
able to work with so many different companies.
Yeah.
Sounds exciting. So this is a great question, I think. Do you have a hero? Who's
Well,
your hero?
I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a story, and who my heroes are. In the last 9 years, I've had so many different companies, but not some of my returns. All of my returns have come from the ones run by women.
Oh.
And so, what is it about women's skill sets as managers in small cap companies that give them that edge? And I found two things. One is they allocate time of their staff very, very well. And here's the one I think is actually making the difference. They set goals that are very achievable. And so when you have a company where the goals are being met every quarter, the morale goes up, the turnover is lower, more productivity, less people leaving. Guys often are very, have a lot of bravado, and they set goals that nobody can achieve, hoping that maybe somebody does a stretch goal. But generally what it does is deter motivation, and people eventually leave because they're never hitting their goals any quarter.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Nice to hear that. So if you had to describe yourself in one word, what would it be?
I would have to say,
Did I stump you?
no, I have the answer on the tip of my tongue. It's Mr. Wonderful.
With a hyphen.
Yeah.
You told us last time about how you got the nickname Mr. Wonderful.
Yes.
For anyone who didn't see, give us a little synopsis
We
of that.
think it happened on the set of Shark Tank in year one when Barbara Corcoran said, I was describing a deal I liked, she didn't like it. I think I was asking for 51% of the company. And she said, well, aren't you just Mr. Wonderful? And I said, yeah, I think I am. And now look at it.
So really, it was a nickname probably all along. It just needed to be said vocally.
Very facetious, skeptic name. Of course, with Barbara, you never know what she's thinking. And it just stuck.
Well, while we're on it, I've noticed too. You wear the you have an outfit. You have a
Uniform?
yeah.
Yes,
uniform.
I've been wearing these suits. I have 25 of these suits. I've got 25 ties, 25 pin ties, 25 shirts. This is what people have come to know me as, and they're uncomfortable when they see me as something else. And I'm happy to accommodate. I throw three of these in a suitcase. I'm good all week.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's what I wear.
Well, why 25 and why not 30 or 31?
Because I
Or the
burn
days
I
are-
burn out about 5 suits every 4 months. So
Okay.
I wear them all day long. They get killed and they die, and I got to throw them out.
So what gets you out of bed in the morning?
I'm very active in the bond market. That starts in Asia and Europe. So I hop out of bed at about 5:45, and I start reading all the research reports from the East.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time 9:30 comes around, I'm pretty versed in the topics du jour in the European market. And generally, they stay the same in the domestic markets as well.
Is there one publication that's really your go-to for news?
It's social media. I look at all my different feeds every morning, and then I go research the article, whether it's in the New York Times, Barron's. I've been doing a lot in Canada lately. My new investment thesis is, as we start to talk about tariffs at borders, I'm going to own stocks in their domestic countries. So I own a lot of stocks in Canada that sell in Canada. I own a lot of stocks in the U.S. that sell in the U.S. They don't have any risk of border traffic trade issues. So, obviously there's a lot of change these days going on, but business is listening and watching, and, there's some concern about it.
You mentioned social media. You mentioned it a few times now. It seems very important to you. It seems like you really embrace it. Talk to us about that.
It's invaluable because you actually talk to your customer directly. They tell you what they think, what they like, what they don't like. They're very vocal. So when you're doing market research on a new product or service, like O'Shares bringing out its latest mid-cap product, that was born on social media. People saying, I want a mid-cap version of OUSA, and that's what happened.
Kevin, what's your greatest strength?
I'd say listening, the ability to listen. I listen a lot. I read a lot of documents and I listen a lot. That's key.
If you could talk to one person in history, kind of go back in time, who would that be?
Probably Napoleon. Yeah, I would, because he was a master politician and warrior and was extremely successful in his campaigns, extraordinarily successful. And he was also the curator of a lot of different Western ideas that stayed in culture forever. So, very interesting guy.
No, that's interesting.
We have a question here. Is there a current CEO that you look up to, that you admire, that you would want to model yourself after?
Let me think about that. Jamie Dimon in financial services has been the most successful in my view. He's weathered 3 huge storms and done it very, very well. And I think anybody that can aspire to do that, so I'll give him my hats off for him.
All right.
No, that's respectable. If you had to start your career all over again, is there anything that you would do differently?
I'd probably work on a good or service or company that is working towards integration in China and Asia. That's going to be the largest market in the world in 15 years. I think if you have some strategy to service that market, it could be very interesting.
Interesting. So what do you like outside of work?
I love rock and roll. I like the wine business I've got. I spend a lot of time sampling wine. I don't do it till markets close, but you know, it's a really interesting space for me. And I'm getting very involved in politics as well. I'm a Canadian citizen and Irish, and I'm very interested in what's going on in Canada, so I'm becoming very, very active there. Tremendous country in terms of its resources, but very poorly managed. And so I think I'd like to get involved in turning that around.
Oh, that's interesting.
Do you think the fellow Sharks would vote for you, given the chance?
I think they've already voted for me.
Yeah.
They do every week.
So
I have one last question.
No,
Are we-
go ahead.
So I think I know the answer to this. Andrew Washam wants to know, will you give him some money?
Don't quit your day job, Andrew. Don't quit your day job.
I actually have another question, and it's kind of morbid, so sorry. When it's all over, how do you want to be remembered?
I'd like to be remembered as a supporter of entrepreneurs because I've been very, very active in the last 20 years doing that. And I'll continue to do it to the day I die. I teach graduating course of engineers, as I mentioned earlier, but I also get involved, get my hands dirty in many different companies, helping them to avoid the mistakes I made. That's the real thing. If you've been successful as an entrepreneur, you owe the next generation, not your successes, but an explanation of how to avoid the mistakes you made so that they don't have to go through those pitfalls.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a great way to be remembered.
Thank you.
Great. Well,
Yeah, we're out. No
Thank
more
you.
questions. Last chance.
great. Well,
Thank you.
thanks for joining us, Kevin.
really
It's a
enjoyed it.
lot of
Yeah,
fun.
thank you.
Thank
Thanks a lot.
you. Mhm.